If a species has directly benefited from the existence of humans and vice versa, it has been the honeybee, which belongs to the order Hymenoptera, one of the most widespread orders worldwide. In general, they are grouped by having two pairs of membranous and transparent wings. Their mouth parts are of the chewing or lapping type. The females have a structure at the end of their abdomen for egg laying, which in more evolved groups turns into a venomous stinger, as in bees, wasps, and ants. The genus Apis includes between 7 to 9 species, depending on classification. Honeybees are native to Europe, Africa, and parts of Asia, and were introduced to America and Oceania during colonization as part of beekeeping, which began in Africa around 9,000 years ago when bees were collected and placed in clay pots. Over time, beekeeping practices, facilities, and especially bee breeds have evolved, and today there are more than 30 varieties. A clarification: breeds are similar to subspecies. While subspecies form naturally due to climatic conditions, adaptation, and other factors, breeds are created by humans for a specific purpose. In the case of bees, the focus is on honey production. They are insects with a nearly worldwide distribution. They inhabit biomes such as deserts, forests, steppes, savannas, and other biotic areas, except in places where the cold is extreme or the availability of flowers is nearly non-existent. Technically, if there is vegetation, there will be bees, as they are responsible for pollinating plants. Therefore, the more bees there are, the greater the vegetation, and vice versa. All bees start the same way, from an egg that later develops into a larva, which turns into a pupa that, through metamorphosis, becomes a bee. Their anatomy is very similar to that of other arthropods in the same family, which can be divided into 3 areas: the head, thorax, and abdomen. Externally, the head contains 2 compound eyes and 3 simple eyes that allow them to detect light and know whether it is day or night, as well as detect changes in the weather, indicating if it is going to rain. In the compound eyes, bees have an average of 6,300 receptive units, or ommatidia, although this number may vary depending on whether they are drones, workers, or queens. These receptive organs allow them to detect rapid movements of threats due to their wide field of vision, find pollen in flowers, and see in color to determine the status of each flower. They cannot detect the color red, but they can see ultraviolet light spectra and polarized light, which allows them to travel with precision. Conversions, 9,000 years, temperature extremes, etc., are not specifically given in metric units that need conversion, so there's no need to change that. Another important structure in the head are the antennas, which have various purposes. One of them is to detect chemicals such as smoke, nectar, pollen, pheromones, predators, water, or to examine honey and nectar. In other words, they're the noses of bees. They also have mouth parts that allow them to feed. In the thorax, the legs are located, allowing them to move by walking. They have 3 pairs of legs, and some casts have brushes on the last pair, responsible for transporting pollen from one flower to another, known as corbiculae. Plants and bees have formed such a strong symbiosis that both benefit mutually. Bees also have 2 pairs of wings that allow them to fly. Although these are small compared to their body size, they compensate by flapping up to 240 times per second, almost twice as much as most insects. This requires a large energy expenditure, which they replenish with their sugar-based diet, providing a lot of energy in a short amount of time compared to fats and proteins. In the abdomen, the digestive system, reproductive system, and a venom sac are found. On the outside is the stinger, which allows them to defend themselves and is only found in worker bees. This stinger has its own innervation and musculature, allowing it, when stinging and detaching, to inject venom called apitoxin, composed of phospholipids and molybdenum. This cocktail is lethal to many insects. For humans, this toxin is not lethal in a single sting. At most, it causes pain and itching, but if one is allergic or stung by many bees, the situation can be completely different. To be allergic to the venom, one must be exposed several times for the venom to represent a danger. If we are attacked by a hive, the amount of venom in our system increases considerably, which can become dangerous. Despite this, more people die each year from attacks by cows, bulls, and horses than from these stings. However, this defense is lethal to the bee itself. The reason is that the stinger has several hooks that firmly attach to the skin of the attacked, causing the bee to be unable to detach the stinger. By exerting force, parts of the abdomen and its interior tear, eviscerating the bee and causing its death. But their sacrifice is for the good of the colony. When the stinger embeds, it begins to release pheromones, indicating to the hive that there is danger, alerting other bees to protect it at all costs, causing a swarm of worker bees to fight to safeguard their home. Bees are very social animals among themselves and form highly structured groups classified by castes and sexes. All males are called drones, and their main function is to fertilize the female so that she produces worker bees. Because drones have haploid cells, we are diploid because we have a pair of chromosomes in cells, while drones only have one set. They develop from an unfertilized egg from the queen, resulting in a bee with only one type of chromosome. Unlike mammals, where males determine the sex of offspring, in bees and other animals, it is the females who provide it. Another function of drones is to provide warmth so that the larvae have a constant temperature and complete their development, as well as to distribute nectar to the workers through trophallaxis, feeding 50 of them per drone. Drones are larger than workers, have large eyes, and a rectangular, long, and robust abdomen. Their flight is noisy, they don't have a stinger, and they live about 90 days. In places where winters are very cold, bees expel them to die from the cold, so as not to waste their food, I want to remind the female audience that we are not bees. Worker bees are bees that originate from the union of a queen and a drone, so they have two sets of chromosomes. They are responsible for all the tasks in the hive, and these tasks vary depending on the age of the bee. When they are born, they clean their own cell, and as they grow, their tasks include feeding the larvae, receiving nectar, cleaning the hive, protecting it, and searching for food. To do this, they communicate with other bees through chemicals, mainly to indicate the presence of danger or by performing dances that convey information about the quality and type of resources in the environment and where they are located. The interactions within a swarm can be so complex that through mimicry, they can find a good amount of resources. Its ovipositor has been modified into a stinger, which they use as a defensive apparatus, and their average lifespan is 85 days. The queen bee is the highest caste in the hive, being the only fertile female, responsible for producing infertile worker bees and pathogen-originated drones. Normally, there is one queen per colony, although sometimes there are two queens if the colony is replacing the old one. The queen can be the mother of a colony of up to 80,000 individuals, and her average lifespan is up to 3 years, making her the longest living caste of all domestic bees. If something were to happen to the queen for any reason, any of the worker bees can take on her role. To do so, she must be fed royal jelly, which allows her to grow in size and develop sexual organs. She is chosen by the worker bees. In a single day, she can lay around 1,500 eggs during the spring, laying more eggs than her own body weight in proportion. Meanwhile, the worker bees satisfy all the queen's nutritional needs and take care of eliminating her waste. Perhaps this is why she is called queen, as her only function is to reproduce. Her size is larger than the others, but with a population ranging from 60,000 to 80,000, it is difficult to recognize her, even for beekeepers. For this reason, in breeder hives, the queen is marked with a drop of paint to make it easier to identify her. This paint spot does not harm the queen, nor is it toxic. Expert beekeepers use different colors to mark the queen's age, and when she gets old, they replace her with a younger one. Bees produce a wide variety of products that humans have used for thousands of years. The main product is honey, which they produce from the nectar of flowers they consume. When mixed with digestive fluids, the nectar is regurgitated, removing some of the water content, although it might be better to eat it than to know how it's produced. Honey is nearly entirely removed by the flapping of their wings and stored for consumption when weather conditions are not ideal. Interestingly, they store a large amount of honey, far more than they actually need, so taking a portion does not harm the bees. They also produce wax, which they obtain from 8 glands in their abdominal segments. They use it as an incubator for the eggs, forming a very specific pattern. We humans have learned to use this wax to create candles, food coatings, and other objects. This does not affect the hive, as when the queen lays eggs, a new segment forms. If we consider that she lays up to 1,500 eggs per day, technically, we help the bees by cleaning the hive of excess wax. This process occurs with many other products that bees produce and that we have learned to use, benefiting us greatly. The main producing countries for these products are Argentina, the United States, Germany, Mexico, Hungary, and Spain. Bees can also become ill and can contract diseases such as varroa, a mite that causes the death of larvae or poor development of bees. The problem is that when using medications to eliminate arthropods, it greatly limits their treatment options. In an effort to stop these diseases, an experimental cross was conducted in Brazil, breeding domestic bees with a more aggressive African subspecies. Their honey production is lower, but they are more resistant to diseases and better at foraging. I repeat, this was an experiment. However, some of these colonies escaped and colonized much of the American territory, causing these species to adapt very well to their new environment. They began forming hives in cities and became known for their aggressiveness, which made them popular but also brought several problems. For example, many pure hives began breeding with them, reducing honey production for many beekeepers. Additionally, some entire hives abandoned their original swarms due to the aggression of the African bees. What initially seemed like a solution became a major problem, and the issue of diseases still persists. Despite everything, a high population of bees is maintained, and thanks to beekeepers, a prosperous balance between intensive production and nature is kept, helping the planet maintain a stable plant population. Without bees, the planet wouldn't be what we know today. They are generalist floral visitors and pollinate a wide variety of plants. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please like it and share it so more people can discover this channel. I'll leave my social media links so we can stay in touch, and I will post relevant channel updates through those platforms. If you're new, I invite you to subscribe. Thank you so much for watching this video. We'll see each other again. Goodbye.